How
I'm
are you
good.
doing, sir, before we start? How's
Um,
life? Where are you up to?
so
How
right
you
now I have a burst of energy and I need to move.
okay?
I'm like all over the place. But I'm so happy to be here. It's interesting because like I actually look forward to it. And I was trying to think like what it is because like there's a lot of things that I love and I still don't look forward to when it comes. But this is something that is very meaningful to me in so many ways because first of all, it's a great way to start the day. Because the first thing I do when I wake up is I just tend to everyone's needs. And here, not only am I tending to my bodily needs, but I'm also tending to a deeper need that
Yeah.
I don't even give myself the the liberty to listen to like 98% of the time. So this is like very grounding for me. You see, my body wants to
You
go
think
everywhere, but like I'm happy to be seated here and I'm all ears.
when you say your need, are you able to share what that need is?
Like a deeper need, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like literally what you just said, we're so not the observer in our life because we're so in it and we see like we don't see the object in front of us from all perspectives. It's just one. And sometimes it looks really heavy and it looks really negative. And I right now, because I'm like tapping into a deeper space, I'm able to lean back and see things a little bit more objectively, 3D, and it doesn't look so bad. So I'm feeling a
Yeah.
little lighter versus every day feeling so heavy. I have a hard time getting up out of bed and starting the day, So I don't know. It's just like an observation I just made and it gets me excited.
Yeah. I think that's also when we understand that there are details. Like it's broken down into so many little bits. Um, I think we can then have input as well. And I think the more we engage, the more connected we feel.
Mhm.
They say that with a caregiver um, and I guess the person they're giving to, they say that the caregiver or the mother is always more attached, emotionally attached to the child because she gives more. Um, and like teachers are more connected and attached to their students than the students are to the teachers. And that kind of works out in the world. And if if we kind of so like a little technique as a like a parenting technique is if you're finding that like your child isn't connecting, you can ask the child to do some chores, as in find
Mhm.
ways to get them invested in the space, and that way they all of a sudden have this investment and this emotional connection. Coming back to Derech Hashem,
Yes. I love when you do that.
if we ask ourselves why Hashem gives us mitzvos,
Oh,
why is he even giving us all this stuff to do? If we
right.
think of it from the connection between the parent and the child, Hashem, as our creator, is connected to us in ways that we can't imagine. And
Yeah.
so the way he gets us to connect with him or with, you know, our higher power and our higher, like the higher self is through this action-based experience, which
Action.
is just something to consider.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I know where you're going, but what I'm taking from this is Shira starts doing the dishes every day from today on.
Yeah, yeah, that's why. Like, they say that kids that do more chores do feel like they get this kind of groundedness. And I think it's the way we communicate it. It's not just dumping on them, but like it's a muscle you have to build. But they
Yeah.
say that the kids that kind of do a little bit more, even if they complain about it, it gives them a lot more, it gives them a sense of purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
I feel like also being connected to the place you're living in, like doing things for it and taking care of it, you feel a little bit more responsible for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's put these kids to work.
Yes. Let's do it. All right.
And I
So
know what you're saying that we should look at the rules that we have and the regulations as an opportunity to get closer and more connected to Hashem. Or
yeah,
to, yeah, or to yourself, to your connection to Hashem.
when we're in a space where we're like, why am I not feeling connected, or we're struggling with that connection, it's just like, go do something. That's why they say, like, go volunteer, go do something, because when you do something, you will feel naturally more connected
I love
because
it.
it's through that action. So it's great.
Or
That's
get on the Zoom with Esther.
yes. So thanks for joining on this early morning,
Thank you.
LA and New York. It's a very busy day. So kudos
Hi,
to all of you. You
Dusty. Hi,
want,
Coffee.
yeah. Do you want to start? It's the last chapter. It's the last bit on 23.
And it goes on to 25?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's just, yeah, okay. All right. By its very nature,
The
every,
one before that. So it's like
oh,
one
sorry.
before that.
Okay. It
It,
is also,
yeah, okay.
okay.
Is also, that's where we're up to.
It is also important to realize that the number of individual details is so great that it is beyond the power of the human mind to embrace them and know them all. One's goal should therefore be to attain knowledge of general principles.
Okay, you can continue
Oh,
the next one, yeah.
I feel like I'm in school, you know?
I know, but that's part of it, right?
It's part of that. By its very nature, every general principle includes many details. As a result, when a person grasps a general principle, automatically he also grasps a large number of details. Although, next page, okay, at the outset, a person processing a general principle might not be aware of its specific details or recognize them as elements of the general principle. Later, when confronted by them, he will be able to recognize them. Oh, okay. Once he is aware of the general principle, he will not be at a loss to recognize the details that fall under it and cannot exist without it. This is what our sages meant when they taught us words of the Torah should always be in your hands as general principles rather than individual details. Hmm.
Okay. Any
I
thoughts?
only understand that in a very general way. Like I can't even think of examples, but I have a feeling that you have a very detailed insight into this, Esther.
I mean, I think this bit is about the simplicity. So
Mm,
it's like a simple thing would be looking at something from a general principle would be like saying a car, looking at the general principle of a car. The general principle of a car would be two things: to drive
mhm.
and to take you somewhere.
Okay.
So that would be like the most basic general.
Right.
So when it says you can identify it by the things that can't exist without. If you'd say, okay, what makes a car drive, right? And you could say the engine, the wheels, certain components of it, and for it to take us somewhere, we have to get into the car. I think it's part of this is the formula of teaching you how to think, because a lot of times, especially nowadays, we get so carried away with extras. Like a simple thing would be clothing. Um, and the idea of clothes is to clothe you, keep you warm, and covered, let's say, keep you covered, for example. If we are in a position where you're like, okay, clothes don't have those components, then
Right.
that would be something it doesn't exist. It exists without, right? Like it can't exist without those components. So if you have fabric, for example, that's cut but not sewn together, that doesn't qualify as clothing. So from a general principle, that's how you would identify it. Where things start getting complicated is, for example, when people start saying they have to have season clothes every season. That's not a function. That's not a necessary function. Maybe we're having a sweater for the summer if you live in a hot climate, that wouldn't function. That would be a general principle that
Mhm.
you don't need. But
Okay.
paying $1,000 for shoes is not the
Right.
function or the general function of a shoe. And I think what happens is, and the same works with food, like food, relationships, we get so carried away, especially in relationships. It's like, I can only love myself if
Yeah.
I can only love somebody else
Yeah.
if somebody else can only love me if. And these are little tricky pieces because um if we kind of go into the function of like what things are from a general aspect, you will strip away so much of the complication. And
Mm.
I think that for so many people, when they're formulating thoughts, they don't take in the foundation of how thoughts are built or, how the function of the thought.
Mm.
So that is, when I look at this, I look at it as teaching us a solid formula in how to see things in the world and, how things communicate with us. So,
Wow. You know, it's crazy because while you were talking about it, I was thinking when COVID hit, all of a sudden, all those little things started melting away, those extras, just
yeah,
literally melting away. And then we were left with what's important, what
right.
really matters, And then all of a sudden we're like, wow, I don't need A, B, and C. I just need to spend time with my kids to feel this joy and this grounding, you know? I don't need to run out to like group yoga classes or friends going out for drinks. Like the joy is in the details of sitting on the floor with my kids, cutting things, painting, laughing, talking, building things together. And it was such a good lesson in a really hard situation, right?
Yeah.
So I think I even like spoke about this one another time. Like, do we need to go through like pandemics to get back to our center? Is there, or like you said, learning about it also creates that awareness, so we don't need to go through like life and death trauma to get back to ourselves, right? Or to find what we're really looking for, but we're running away from.
Yeah.
So it's just like an interesting, very interesting thing. I always think about it. Like, in order to get to this place of like higher consciousness, awareness, or like really getting down to the point of knowing what's important in life for me, I had to go through so much. People say, would you do it like all over again? I don't know. It was really hard. Oh, Rissy's here. Hi, Rissy. But yeah, so we could do this. We could sit down every Thursday and get to it from a calm, safe, stable place with love and patience. We don't have to go through trauma to get to this space.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I feel like for me, when COVID, you were talking about COVID, when that hit, I realized how many things that I felt were mandatory were actually optional.
Interesting example.
So, like let's say school. I felt like my brain was always in a place of like school is mandatory.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just I think medical system, like there were a bunch of systems that I think we all kind of stepped back and we're like, how functional is this? How mandatory is this for compliance? The other
Mm.
thing that I really loved was talking about kids was that everybody got to flow at their own pace in the morning. It wasn't this kind of mandatory, everybody has to be up at a certain time and being that rigidity. And I got to kind of make meals for everyone and nurture everyone. There was enough time in the day, as you said. to really bond, which I
Wow.
think kind of stepping back, and that could also be like the general principle of like, what is the general principle of humanity? Like if we could think about it straight from that. So, um, and these are like little questions we each get to answer for ourselves, you know, and because it kind of it's really personal. Um, the other thing you were saying about like you know it's like learning from experience, so there's always two ways to learn something, and part of it is learning from experience, but part of it is also this, as you said, the education part, and it's more of an awareness part, and the more aware we are, the less susceptible we are to, as we said, like injury. And
Mhm.
I find, like for me, a big thing was fear. When I was younger, there was a lot of fear. um, and the more knowledge I accumulated about myself, about the world, about how I engage in the world, um, the more that started to fizzle out and fade. So
Mm.
that's really interesting also, to always ask ourselves, like, some of the symptoms that we feel, is it because we don't have enough information um, about the subject?
Yeah.
So I can encourage you all in that sense. And this is something I like to do for myself. And especially we live in a day and age where there's so much information accessible. Is like, rather than trying to like solve problems, just create awareness. It's not
Yeah.
about I'm going to change this. Just start, get curious, you know, explore that curiosity. So yeah.
Wow. It's so true. It's so true. I was always trying to run away from Borough Park. All my stuff is here, and I don't have like I have some good memories. I have good people. I have also bad memories and people that haunt my dreams, and I see them in the grocery store, And then, hey, principal, and um, and then I finally got to move, and I was started moving. Right? Remember before
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was it when you were living here, or was it before
Yeah.
you?
It was
Right?
it was almost before. Yeah, it was like then.
Right. And I was very excited to move. I'm like gonna have a new start and forget about all this. And then all of a sudden I was stuck here, and then I had to, without a car, without a job. All of a sudden life is starting from scratch, and I'm stuck in Borough Park like hardcore. And I have to go to the grocery stores here every day, and I have to go to this, and I have to pass all the people from my past every day. But at the end, because I was stuck there, I was sort of forced to open my eyes and start seeing different angles of everything, the details.
Yeah.
And I started seeing that no one is throwing me out of here. People love me, people respect me. And I started forging really nice relationships with people from my past in Borough Park. And then I signed up for Sheer once a week, and I joined a bunch of ladies. Hi, Rissy. Rissy's part of them. And I went through a healing journey. Instead of running away, I found peace here and love.
I think it also starts with finding peace and love in yourself first.
Yeah.
Because if we're coming from a negative, we'll see everything negative.
Mhm.
And I think a general principle is that everything has positivity and negativity. And when we have these kind of general principles in mind, we always understand that there are complexities, right? But like a general principle is that, most people, again, outside of like narcissists, um, they mean well. They want to see you do well.
Yeah.
Um, I was sharing this with my daughter, a married daughter, yesterday. And like a rule of thumb is, whenever you're engaging with somebody, you have to ask yourself, if there's a negative component, you don't have to kind of check off negative characteristics and saying, oh, this person's a bad person or anything like that. But what you can say to yourself is this person or the thing they're asking me to do, will it put me in harm's way?
Mm,
And that's a really strong statement, because then you're not looking for the negative in somebody else. you're noticing within yourself if, first of all, you're in a place where you know what you need,
Mm,
and if that person is really going to put you in harm's way, and that will help you. It'll tell you a lot about if you're going into like an abusive environment, or and also like how much you let other people take advantage of you. So
right.
it's also, it kind of sheds a light on the perception of your own self also, versus like when you see somebody ask something that is going to be a consequence of yours, on you. It's really important to notice that they they won't stop to say like, oh, is this going to inconvenience you somehow, or is this going to harm you in any way? So yeah, I feel like most people mean well. Like the general is that most people mean well. But when you kind of look at that space of like, oh, is this, you look at it from that component, you can, you go into the world with more ease, and you're not looking for negativity. So then you don't start processing
Right.
negativity.
Like you put
But
the neutral
right,
glasses.
right. And then you can just be open to like, when you say no, if you know that somebody means well, then you feel uncomfortable somehow, you're going to just be comfortable saying no or declining whatever that ask is, because you're in a place where you're very aware that that person means well. So they don't want you to compromise yourself or your position um,
Thing.
in any state. And that's like, it's such an important thing, uh,
Yeah.
especially with, yeah, adding to what you were, yeah,
Yeah, amazing. No, it's so much. So
yeah.
many, yeah, so many good things here. Thank you.
We could do one more paragraph
Yeah.
unless you
Okay.
have
Yeah.
to
Because
go.
I
It's up to
do
you
I
because
do
I'm
have
keeping
to
you. Yeah,
go.
yeah,
But I'm, when I leave 9:15, then you guys could still yenta.
okay.
But
Yeah,
remind tell
let's
me
see
all
what
the
we.
good stuff that come up. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess I'll read the thing afterwards. We send it out.
yeah.
So the next read is, oh
It
sorry.
starts when dealing with general principles.
I know, I know. I just, the only thing is that it went away. I'll have to go back to
You want
it.
me to read it? I
Yeah,
can read
yeah, that'd be great.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when dealing with general principles, however, one must be very careful to grasp all their aspects and areas of validity. Even elements that initially may seem superficial should not be ignored, but should be taken to heart and put in the back of one's mind until their place in the general scheme becomes clear. Our sages thus said, there is nothing in the Torah that is empty, that if expounded does not yield reward in this world, with the principles remaining intact in the world to come. That is no small or large point of any general principle, um, will will be barren of ramifications. And if a point will not teach and have ramifications about certain particulars, it will about others.
Hmm.
I'm just going to, in turn, every general principle must provide some necessary information regarding all of its particular cases, for that is the nature of a general principle. So, what I, and again, everything we're saying here is just like a reflection of what the way we see it. So, this is not some rabbinical interpretation. We're reading Derech Hashem from that place, but what I see here is that it's saying like it's saying that you have to take things to heart. Like the whole this is not about being some kind of um robot or soldier in an army. This is about taking things to heart, taking things personal, and noticing things. And I think what this is saying is that pay attention to the details. And when you see something negative, right, or you see something right or wrong, right, you see a rewarding quality or a redeeming quality in somebody, or you see something that you're not so sure about. What he's saying is just keep it at the back of your mind because at the end of the day, he's saying things have ramifications. And it's not, he says in the world to come as well, because I think like the interpretation of like the world to come in this kind of experiences is like you don't change. Like whatever you formulated is is your existence, your awareness. So the thing is when you ground yourself, I think, in general principle, right? So you start with a grounded foundation of general principle. For example, a car, the principle of a car is to the general principle is to drive and to take me from one place to the other. What he's saying is if you see different signs like the car's dirty, it needs a wash, or you hear something, you know, you can hear, or a light goes on, like their engine needs to be checked, pay attention to that. So it's not like you might not need to take care of it right away. You might not know what something is right away, but just pay attention. So I think that that's what he's kind of saying here is because at the end of the day, everything has a purpose. And I think for some of us, we just ignore certain things and we're like, oh, these things are going to go away. So it's when we have a general foundation of understanding the purpose, then also we don't go into a place of illusion, right? So sometimes, um, an example, you let if you've had if somebody, I don't know, embarrassed you or abused you somehow or shamed you, and then you are randomly walking down the street and you see somebody that looks very similar to that person, you could be like, oh my gosh, that shame might kind of wash over you or that abuse, and you can
Don't
feel
even
that. But then
know.
you look at that person and say, oh, that person didn't do that to me. That
Right.
person is not abusive in the sense that, like, we have to kind of ground it in the reality of that function, as in, because if not, then we go into the world eluding certain things. So once we have that grounded foundation of things and its purpose, then the next thing is pay attention to the signs. So for a simple example of that would be, we'll just bring strawberries into this for a minute.
I'd
So
love
if
to
you
hear this.
if you've tasted real strawberries, right? And then you go to the right fresh, organic, whatever, like best strawberries ever. And then you go and pick up strawberry ice cream, right? So it could be like a dairy ice cream or whatever, and you taste it and you're like, oh, you smell it first and you're like, oh, this smells like strawberry. Okay, fine, smells like strawberry. You taste it and it has that like milky flavor, but then you start feeling that artificial flavoring. You could be like, oh, this is supposed to taste like strawberry.
Mm.
It doesn't. As in it does or it doesn't, right? Now, if you see pieces of strawberry, that might be like, okay, that might give you evidence that there's something real about it. But pay attention. Just pay attention to the pieces. Um, and I think the most important part of this is it's giving you the confidence in your mind. Because I think a lot of us are also raised in ways that we're like, first of all, you're not old enough to know anything, right? Or experienced enough. Or they say, like, when you're my age, you
Hmm.
know, instead of giving even children the confidence and saying, you're so smart, you're so intuitive, go after your intuition, trust your intuition. So I feel like this is a really great thing where it's telling you also trust your intuition,
Yeah.
trust
Um,
what you're feeling. It's
yeah.
take it personal, because and take it to heart. So that's my ramble.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really good. I hate strawberry ice cream. I love strawberries.
Okay.
But like maybe this is a little too personal. I don't want to offend anyone. Like I came from Hasidic background of, just knowing only this world and feeling a lot of, not good stuff, experiencing a lot of not good stuff. And it really, really jaded me to a point where I didn't feel part of this community. I felt always ostracized. But these are my friends are in here. My family is in here. Like it was a very like I couldn't find my place, my opinion. But then I saw other people that also came from this place, went through a lot of trauma and then left with a hatred. And I saw that and I saw like that's what I don't want, right? So, but now how do I find my place here? Um, like people will see religious people and be like, "Mwah, mwah," but the truth is that because we have this experience, it's so huge. It's like sort of blocking any sort of light coming through it. And cleaning that up was very important to me. I don't want to go around with that feeling. It's not real because it's only my experience, right? We always spoke about like my Shabbos experience is different from your
Yeah.
Shabbos experience. Um, so that was a lot of hard work, but it is so worth it not to go around with stereotypes, with grudges, and like on the whole world or on a whole race, on a whole, gender or anything, because I want to go through life lighter, not so heavy.
Yeah.
So
And I
that's what,
remember when you shared some of this with me when we first like when we were connecting and bonding,
yeah.
and you said to me, you're like, what I'm going to the place you're leaving, and you were going to the place I was coming from.
Meeting each
You're
other.
like, why would you want
Crossroads.
to go there? You're like, why are you doing this to
Don't
yourself?
you see how bad it is,
Yeah.
right?
And what I said to you was, look, we all have this opportunity to explore, but also I said to you, just what do you want? Like when we take accountability for what we want
Yeah.
in life, I think we blame less. As
Yeah.
soon as there's responsibility, I gave a class last week on responsibility and power and how responsibility is connected to power. And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of people again, there's different types of people in the world. And I think when you take on your responsibility, you will also feel empowered. And when you feel
Mm,
empowered, you blame other people less.
mm,
Also, you step out of the place of critique because you understand that how critique works, as in there's a humility that comes with it.
yeah.
Because you understand the work that goes into something.
Mm,
And also, then you know a general principle that we all have different faces, meaning we're all going to have different minds. We're going to have different ways of approaching life in the world.
yeah.
So it's interesting to, to explore and having a positive mindset, I think, is very healing. And I think
Like,
you're in a place where you have relationships, you have a healthy relationship with yourself
yeah.
that I think reflected
I mean, we're getting there.
a healthier relationship with the people that once were in your life or
Yeah.
like the projections
Yeah,
as well.
for sure. I'm looking for
All
my
right.
sneakers. Have to go. But this was
Enjoy.
amazing. So happy we made time to do this and before Purim.
Yes.
And thank you everyone that joined. You guys are gonna Yenta now.
We'll
I
see. Yeah.
want to hear
Me too.
everything afterwards. Okay.
All right.
I
Esther,
love you.
enjoy.
Bye,
Okay,
Esther.
love you
See you
all.
soon.
Bye.